You see the way that the debt ceiling is being reported. I listened to AP News in the morning, and I knew there was something good. Like when they start to talk about the debt ceiling on AP in the way that they talk about it, I knew where we were headed here. Mm-hmm. And I think we're on the verge of like watching Joe Biden cave in some fashion. I don't know how material the cuts are going to be, but it just simply feeds the beast, as it were, the Republicans using the debt ceiling as they've done in the past. And, they're going to claw back COVID relief funds. There's probably going to be some cuts to some discretionary spending. We'll see. But I have a feeling that's where we're headed. But if you look at the coverage, we're back where we were, 10 years ago, which is how, we have a debt ceiling crisis. We don't have a debt ceiling crisis. We have one party that is trying to stand in the way of just doing their job. There's multiple avenues for the administration to do this. Lawrence Tribe, a hero of the resistance, came out, a famous constitutional lawyer, and said, the 14th Amendment, you have no problems. There's not going to be any litigation even. You have the ability to do this. Yellen apparently thinks there's a court problem. She can have it out with the, one of the most famous constitutional, professors in the country. But the point is, the reporting on this is completely skewed, and it was always my contention, particularly, frankly, when I got fired for a brief period of time because of a satirical tweet that Mike Cernovich had drug up and got Donald Trump Jr. to retweet. My contention is that the reason why the press did not have the ability to deal with the lies of Trump, and this was back in 2017, so he'd only been in office for 11 months at that point. The reason why the press doesn't have the ability to deal with Trump, the reason why an entire news organization couldn't make sense of a tweet that just about everybody fully understood what the point of that tweet was, is because when you had, I don't know, Republicans for years, when you had Paul Ryan claiming that, if you cut taxes, revenues are going to go up, and all of this sort of like just ridiculous. Everybody knew what he was saying was a fraud, but there was such a compulsion to not make an assessment of claims by the Republican Party, that they were just trained to accept lies. They knew that the media knows better how to launder lies than it does to actually call them out.
No doubt about it. And, we're watching this happen with, that going back to what we were originally talking about with Donald Trump and the town hall. That's exactly what was happening there, was that lies were being laundered. And, and when you look at what he said in terms of the debt ceiling, I mean, it was radically, it was outrageous what he said in that town hall. I mean, I don't know how much anybody was paying attention. It was such a, an overwhelming wave of, torrent of lies and weirdness that maybe nobody really heard this. What he said, he told the House Republicans that it was good to default on the debt. He basically said, it's fine. It's going to happen. He kept saying, it's going to happen anyway. Might as well do it. Like, I don't know what that means. It's going to happen anyway. But, they let that go. I mean, that just went through, just, go ahead and default, go ahead and do it. And even to the extent that he said, and I couldn't believe he did it, she brought up, she goes, well, they raised the debt ceiling while you were president every time. And there was really no resistance. And he said, and you came out and said, and there's a famous quote of him out there saying that you should never use the debt ceiling as a negotiating tool. The debt ceiling is sacred, he said. You can't use it. And she brought that up and told him that. And he said to her, she goes, well, what's the difference now? And he says, well, I'm not president now.
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of snotty 11-year-old boy logic that he uses. But what he did was give permission and made it in front of the whole country to the House Freedom Caucus, his people. Absolutely, hold out and don't do anything. Do not give an inch. And so, I didn't see the news in the morning with any headlines saying Donald Trump is saying that the country should default. This is a terrible thing. It shouldn't happen and blah, blah, blah. I didn't see anything like that because that's really not news to them. What's news is Joe Biden needs to start negotiating. He needs to get off the dime and get in there and start negotiating those cuts because, that's the only answer is for Joe Biden to negotiate. And, sure enough, I think, you and I are watching this sort of unfold here over the next couple of weeks, I guess. This is going to be happening. Maybe a month. I don't know when this whole thing is going to, allegedly we hit the deadline here. But, they're negotiating. And that has come largely, I believe. I mean, I think, we heard in the beginning that the administration absolutely understood after 2011. We've read piece after piece after piece of Obama administration people and people who are now in the Biden administration. They learned their lesson. You can't negotiate with these terrorists when they're doing this thing. It's a bad thing. Don't do it. And the lesson was from, I guess it was the 2011 negotiations, that if they don't negotiate, the Republicans end up capitulating. And that's what you have to do. You have to push them to the absolute limit. Well, what all this is what I love. The media is giving Republicans this new power that they didn't have in 2011 by saying they're so radical, they're so out of their minds that they will let the country default. And Donald Trump is out there saying, go ahead and do it. And so everybody's looking at Joe Biden going, well, it's up to you to save the country.
Right. I mean, no, but this is always how it goes down. Yeah, this is always how it goes down.
It's absolutely outrageous. It's your job to stop these crazy people by giving them what they want. If you don't give them what they want, they're going to blow up the world. And, and they're saying that's, well, that's just the way it is. You got to do it. What are you going to do, Joe?
I blame the press for this, but it's also very hard not to blame Biden. It's very hard not to blame the Democratic leadership because we see example after example. I mean, this week I was talking about Dick Durbin allowing, reinstating blue slips and allowing all of these judges to be held up by Republican senators when, of course, and he turns to them and says, like, during the Trump years, we didn't do this. Why are you doing this now? I mean, honestly, and you and I have been having this exact same conversation for probably now, like, I'm sorry to say, I mean, this has been a long time. We've been talking about this for 18 years, maybe.
Yeah, at least.
And it is because it's the exact same, like literally the same politicians as it was 18 years ago.
Well, that's true.
Making these decisions. I mean, that's the thing is that I don't know that this is endemic in the Democratic Party. We can't tell yet because it's the exact same people.
Exactly.
It's the exact same people doing the exact same things as they've been doing this entire time. And as if like, they have this sense of what we're going to do is we're going to hold down the institutional fort. And when Trump goes away, this is going to be important. We are the ones who saved like the political civilization, as it were. But this is also exactly what they said during the Bush years. Yep.
And it's what they said during the Obama years. It's what they say over and over again. Well, we just got to hold out. And, then when this clears, when the smoke clears and all this radicalism is wrung out of the Republican Party and we go back to normal, then we will have preserved all these great norms and processes so that, we can negotiate in good faith again. Well, I mean, I do not see that light at the end of the tunnel. It is not, in my lifetime, it has been the opposite. You give them an inch and they take a mile. The right has gotten more and more and more radical, and it's really accelerated in the last 10 years. And but it's been coming this whole time, and largely because of that particular attitude. The Democrats continually just say, well, they're terrified of being called radicals themselves, right? I mean, this is a big problem. That's one thing I like about the younger generation. They don't give it. You can call them radicals. They don't care. So whatever. But the old people, people who are my age, who went through the Reagan years, and a lot of them did, they are terrified of having that happen again, of being tagged as being, radical left-wingers and calling them socialists and all this stuff. And they're scared of that. So they're always wanting to be the reasonable. They have to always feel that they're demonstrating that they are the reasonable adults, and that they are going to, they're going to do the right thing, and no one should question it, because they're very much afraid. And the media reinforces this, by the way.
Yeah.
They're always talking about, the suburban voters are going to abandon you if you get too crazy, and Black Lives Matter, and Antifa and all that. They push that stuff. So, they definitely kind of, tickle that particular fear in those particular Democrats. But, this is something, and Biden is probably, in this particular case, Biden may be the worst possible person to be in charge. And I say that as someone who's been, very, surprised, and happily so, that he's had as successful a presidency as he's had. He's been much less, Biden-like than I expected. But when it comes to these particular things, he has a very high opinion of himself as a negotiator who can get a good deal. This is something, and he did it back in the negotiations back in the Obama administration. He stepped in. Harry Reid already had a plan. They had a strategy, and it was working. And Biden decided to come in and basically gave away the store. And Reid absolutely in the 2013 negotiations, he banned him. He said, he told Obama, keep him away. We don't want him anywhere near this. And Obama did, because Obama had learned that lesson and kept Biden out of the negotiations. So I'm very concerned, because when I saw him the other day in the press conference, he's sort of mouthing all the right things, say, we're not going to negotiate and blah, blah, blah. But there was something about the way he was talking that just told me he really, he's going to do it.
Politico said that that there was there is some reporting to the effect that he is getting ready. There is some, I guess, hints that he is already starting to cave. Now, to be clear here, there's not, I don't know if these are going to be sort of like material policy implications. When you're talking about $20 billion from COVID relief, it depends on where it comes from, I guess, to some extent. That would be clawed back, but we're talking over the course of like hundreds of billions of dollars but it is you're setting up stuff for the next round of this,
right? And
I'm also not convinced, frankly, that like when you have Zients, is that his name, who's the chief of staff, and you have now Neera Tanden, who is the chief domestic policy advisor. These are not good people to have around a guy like Joe Biden, really anybody. Right. But this plays into the worst parts of Joe Biden in terms of these negotiations. So I guess
here are the two possible outcomes of this. The first is that they do a series of negotiations. They get together, and this happened before. They get together, they throw a bunch of stuff on the table. Maybe Biden throws a bunch of stuff that's just completely unacceptable on the table. And then the Freedom Caucus and, McCarthy's right wing in the House just says absolutely no way. My way or the highway, we get it all or we get nothing. That's what happened before. Right. Because they had Boehner and Biden and McConnell had, negotiated. They had a deal, and the Freedom Caucus
to cut Social Security too.
To cut Social Security, yeah. I mean, they had, they were given, like I said, they gave away the store, and they had, they had made a deal, and the Freedom Caucus at that time, I guess they were still called the Freedom. They were Tea Partiers in those days, pre-Trump, and they basically said, no, we could get it all or nothing. That's one scenario. And then there's another scenario that they just do a deal where everybody gets to save face, right? Give the Republicans a way to say, yeah, we cut a bunch of stuff, and the Democrats can say, yeah, but they didn't cut anything too important, and everybody's happy. Well, neither of those two situations will solve this problem. I mean, perhaps the immediate problem will be solved, which is that they end up raising the debt ceiling with some Republican, the Senate passes the debt ceiling. That's assuming. Right. That's assuming. Now, I think we all thought that they could get 60 votes to raise the debt ceiling, but that's not sure either now, because the Senate's all acting up. They're acting like a bunch of House members. So who knows? But let's assume the Senate passes something to passes the bill to raise the debt ceiling. Then it goes back to the House, and they can get 5 Republicans to go over and vote with the Democrats to raise the debt ceiling, and Kevin McCarthy gives up his job and basically says, okay, I'm sacrificing myself on the altar of the debt ceiling. Now, what kind of betting is this? I mean, it's insane. And even if one of those things were to happen, even if, okay, we dodged a bullet again and the debt ceiling's gotten raised, it has once again empowered these people to keep doing this thing. Yep. They are going to do it again, and it's going to be worse and worse each time because they're getting crazier and crazier. So, I find it hard to see. I honestly find it very hard to see the outcome here that doesn't include, using the 14th Amendment. I don't know that Joe Biden can even negotiate enough. I mean, they're asking him to roll back his entire agenda. And the more he agrees to do that in negotiations, the more they're going to ask for. And maybe he's willing to do that. I don't know. And it's possible that he is, because, he likes to do that stuff. This is, to me, this is one of those situations when you're dealing with people like this, that you really have no choice but from the get-go to do what they had been doing up until recently, which was just say, no, we're not doing it. Sorry, talk to the hand. You want to talk budgets? We'll talk budgets. Let's get in there. We'll negotiate and we'll do whatever, but we're not doing it around the debt ceiling. That's not happening. And I don't know what other outcome it's going to be. I mean, this is going to be the most dangerous one, because you have the Marjorie Taylor Greene caucus. And I honestly don't see how will they accept yes for an answer. I honestly, I can't see that happening. And, at which point, what happens? Kevin McCarthy gives up his job? Do we see that happening?
No, no. I'm amazed and really wonder where Wall Street, where the big corporate money, where is that pressure? Because you would think they would welcome the 14th Amendment solution. Let's just get this off the table. We don't have to worry about, this default in the past. And the cuts aren't material enough, it seems to me, in terms of what, the
right. What are they getting
for corporations, anyways? And then it's not like there's tax cuts there. But it really is indicative of, I think, of a mentality amongst these specific Democrats that is probably not necessarily influenced by, sort of like donations and whatnot. It's really just like really, really sclerotic political thinking, and that is not like it really is. This is just, they're bad at their jobs. And again, I go back to the Durbin, sort of like blue slip thing. I mean, and frankly, Dianne Feinstein.
Hey, I was just going to say the same thing. Yeah.
This is it's just insanity. It really is insanity. And, I mean, I'm terribly worried about the next election. I don't think, frankly, I don't think Donald Trump did himself any favors by going on and doing this on CNN in the way that he did.
Not really.
I don't think he wins any votes there, but I think it just further degrades the capacity of media, and it just makes everything worse. I think that's sort of like what's happening here with the debt ceiling too. Yeah. It's a degradation of anything. It's just a going backwards in terms of being able to do anything. It's pretty depressing.
It's very depressing, and they are looking at, they had the opportunity to get rid of the debt ceiling, or at least extend it way the hell out at the end of the last term when they still had both houses. And they couldn't do it because of Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. And the reason I say this is because they had an extra, what was it?
Reconciliation.
Reconciliation. Yeah, you had an extra reconciliation that they could have used, but Manchin and Sinema wouldn't go along. So, I mean, this is another part of the problem, is that, as long as the Democratic Party does not have a fully functional coalition either, certainly in the Senate, and that is going to continue to be a big problem for them. And
we are going to see, I am quite sure, if there is some type of debt ceiling deal, we're going to see that remember that provision that Joe Manchin wanted, his separate bill for permitting and whatnot that he had come up.
That's one that's definitely on the table. Yeah,
I am quite convinced we're going to end up seeing that in this.
If there's one thing they do actually get, it will be that. And and people are going, well, maybe if that's the only thing, I'm going, oh great, let's perfect. Let's empower Joe Manchin some more. And the thing is that Joe Manchin is probably going to lose his race because this guy, Jim Justice, who is, another Democrat turned Republican, which is basically the same thing as Joe Manchin. He's probably going to win, and Manchin is probably out anyway. And now he's talking about running third party on the no labels ticket. I mean, there's all this whispering. I don't think he's going to, but he's using that as leverage, right? Maybe I'll run third party, maybe I'll do something else. I mean, he could, lose the seat and mess up Joe Biden. I mean, the guy's a real piece of work, Joe Manchin is.
Yeah, he's trying to get, he's literally trying to, we're watching just him, we're watching basically a job application in process, right. For him to deliver these stuff for the fossil fuel industry. For sure. And and I don't think it's just payback. I think there's more money in this future as well, of course. Frankly.